September 20th, 1942. 0847 hours. Naval Air Station, North Island, San Diego, California. Lieutenant Commander Harlan Barrett sits alone in a cockpit that reeks of death. The instrument panel displays characters he cannot read. Japanese kanji stark white against black metal. Oil pressure 62 pounds per square inch. Fuel gauge 87 gallons. Altimeter 12 feet above sea level. The numbers tell him the machine is ready. The smell tells him something else. Blood. Dried blood on the seat cushion, brown and flaking. Aviation oil mixed with something organic. Something that rotted in an Alaskan bog for 10 weeks before American salvage crews pulled this aircraft from the mud. The control stick is still tacky where someone else's sweat soaked into the leather grip. Harlan Barrett is 32 years old. He has flown 47 different aircraft types in his 6 years as a Navy test pilot. He has survived 4 crashes, 3 engine failures, and 1 mid-air collision that should have killed him over Chesapeake Bay in 1939. He has logged 2,847 flight hours. He knows airplanes the way a surgeon knows human anatomy, but he has never flown this. The Mitsubishi A6M 2 Model 210, serial number 4593, the most feared fighter aircraft in the Pacific Theater. The plane that destroyed American air power at Pearl Harbor 9 months ago. The plane that shot down 427 American pilots in the first year of war. The plane that made grown men weep with frustration because nothing in the American arsenal could match it. And now one sits on American soil, intact, flyable, waiting for Barrett to unlock its secrets. If he succeeds in the next 60 minutes, he will save 50,000 American lives. Navy projections are clear. Without a tactical counter to the zero, the projected pilot losses through 1945 exceed 18,000 men. With proper intelligence, with understanding of the enemy's capabilities and weaknesses, that number drops to 7,000. 11,000 lives hanging on one test flight. If he fails, if this aircraft has hidden damage, if the restoration team missed something critical, Harlan Barrett will die in a machine built by the Empire that killed 2,403 Americans at Pearl Harbor. He will crash in a Japanese fighter on American soil, and the secrets will die with him. The weight sits on his chest like a sandbag. Outside the cockpit, armed guards ring the hangar. Their orders are absolute. No one approaches the zero without written authorization from the base commander. No photographers, no souvenir hunters, no one who might damage the most valuable aircraft in the world. The guards have been there since the plane arrived 3 weeks ago, working 8-hour shifts, carrying loaded rifles, protecting a machine that represents the difference between victory and catastrophic loss in the Pacific. Barrett reaches down and touches the samurai sword lying on the concrete beside the aircraft. It belonged to the previous pilot. The Japanese boy who died in this cockpit on June 4, 1942, in the Aleutian Islands, 4,000 miles northwest of this California airfield. The boy's name was in the intelligence report. Takeshi Yamada. Flight, Petty Officer First Class, Imperial Japanese Navy. 19 years old. 287 flight hours. Launched from the carrier Ryujo as part of a diversionary strike against Dutch Harbor, Alaska. Shot down an American PBY Catalina patrol bomber. Took ground fire from a .50 caliber machine gun that severed his oil return line. Made an emergency landing on a Kutan island that went catastrophically wrong. Dead at 19. Neck snapped at the C2 vertebra when the zero flipped inverted in a bog concealed by grass. Barrett is 13 years older than Yamada was. Barrett has a wife named Sarah and 2 sons ages 8 and 6 waiting for him in officer housing 2 miles from this airfield. Yamada had a mother in Hokkaido who received a telegram saying her son died heroically for the Emperor. She does not know her son's airplane is here, about to betray every secret of Japanese naval aviation. Barrett pulls on his leather flight helmet. The ear cups smell of his own sweat, familiar and human. He adjusts his goggles. He runs through the pre-flight checklist one more time, even though he has memorized every switch, every lever, every control surface movement. The restoration took 41 days. From August 1st, when the Zero arrived in Seattle aboard a cargo ship, to this morning, September 20th, when the chief mechanic signed off on airworthiness. 41 days of American ingenuity applied to Japanese engineering. The team replaced the crushed windscreen with plexiglass cut to match the original curvature. They straightened the vertical stabilizer and rudder using hydraulic presses and precise measurements. They rebuilt the landing gear that sheared off in the crash, fabricating parts from photographs and educated guesswork. They dressed the 3-blade Sumitomo propeller, hammering out the bent tips, balancing the assembly until it spun true. The engine troubled them most. The 14-cylinder Nakajima NK1C Sakai 12 radial engine, 940 horsepower, at 2,750 revolutions per minute, showed no obvious damage. But it had been submerged in bog water for 10 weeks. Corrosion could be hiding anywhere. A seized piston, a cracked cylinder, a compromised bearing, any of these could cause catastrophic failure at altitude. They test-ran the engine for 37 hours on a static mount, monitoring every gauge, listening for any irregular sound. The engine ran smoothly, almost too smoothly. American engines were rougher, more agricultural. The Sakai purred like a sewing machine, mechanical precision in every revolution. Now Barrett will trust his life to it. He signals the ground crew. 2 mechanics in grease-stained coveralls approach the aircraft. One stands by the propeller. The other crouches near the landing gear, ready to pull the wheel chocks. Barrett primes the engine. Fuel pump on, mixture rich, throttle cracked 1 inch, magnetos to both. His hands move through the sequence automatically, muscle memory from 100 engine starts in 100 different aircraft. He hits the starter. The Sakai coughs once, twice, then catches with a sound unlike any American engine Barrett has ever heard. Not the deep rumble of a Pratt & Whitney radial. Not the crackling bark of a Wright Cyclone. This is smoother, higher-pitched, almost refined. The 14 cylinders fire in sequence, the engine note climbing from a burble to a steady mechanical hum. The Japanese instrument panel comes alive. Oil pressure climbs to 62 pounds per square inch. Coolant temperature holds at 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Tachometer shows 800 revolutions per minute at idle. Every needle moves into the green arc, every system functioning exactly as designed. Barrett lets the engine warm for 3 minutes, watching the temperatures stabilize. The vibration through the airframe is minimal. The Americans built their fighters like farm tractors, tough and simple. The Japanese built this like a Swiss watch, precise and delicate. He runs up the engine. Throttle forward smoothly. The Sakai responds instantly, RPM climbing to 1,500, then 2,000, then 2,500. The propeller blast kicks up dust from the tarmac, blowing it back in visible waves. The noise increases, but even at high power, the engine sounds controlled, engineered, deliberate. Magneto check. Left magneto alone, RPM drops 40. Right magneto alone, RPM drops 50. Both values within acceptable limits. The ignition system is sound. Throttle back to idle. The engine settles into its purring rhythm again. Barrett releases the parking brake. The mechanic yanks the wheel chocks. The Zero begins to roll forward, propelled by nothing more than idle thrust and gravity's gentle pull on the slight downslope of the tarmac. It moves like a ballerina. That is the first thing Barrett notices. The aircraft weighs 5,313 pounds fully loaded. His regular mount, the F6F Wildcat, weighs 7,952 pounds. The difference is immediately apparent. The Zero glides across the pavement with minimal resistance, almost eager to fly. He steers with rudder pedals taxiing toward the runway. The tail wheel is steerable, linked to the rudder, giving him precise directional control. American fighters used free-castering tail wheels that made ground handling awkward. Another Japanese refinement, another small advantage that added up to aerial superiority. The tower gives him clearance. Runway 26, wind from 280 at 8 knots, altimeter 29.92 inches. Clear to take off. Barrett taxis onto the runway centerline. He takes one last look at the instrument panel. Everything normal. Everything ready? He thinks about Takeshi Yamada, 19 years old, a boy from a fishing village on the northern coast of Hokkaido, an island so cold that winter temperatures dropped to -20 Fahrenheit. Yamada volunteered for naval aviation to send money home to his family. His father was a fisherman. His mother sold vegetables in the village market. Yamada wore medical tape around his torso, wrapped tight against broken ribs from a training accident, because he refused to be grounded, because flying meant everything to him. Intelligence found a letter in Yamada's flight suit pocket. Undelivered. Written the morning of June 4th, before he climbed into this cockpit for the last time. The translator provided a summary. "Mother, if I do not return, please do not cry. I am honored to serve. I will see you in the next life." He never mailed the letter. Never got the chance. It was still in his pocket when American salvage crews pulled his body from the inverted cockpit on July 10th, 10 weeks after the crash. They buried him on a hillside overlooking the sea, no marker, just a cairn of stacked rocks because the ground was too frozen for a proper grave. Barrett advances the throttle. The Sakai roars. Not loud, not brutal, but insistent. The propeller claws at the air, pulling the lightweight fighter forward with startling acceleration. Barrett feels it in his spine, the sudden thrust, the eagerness of the machine. 50 miles per hour. The tail comes up. Barrett pushes the stick forward slightly, raising the tail wheel off the runway, and suddenly he can see over the nose. Visibility improves dramatically. Another Japanese advantage. American fighters sat tail low during takeoff roll, the long nose blocking forward view until flying speed. The Zero's geometry allowed earlier visibility, earlier awareness. 65 miles per hour. The wings generate lift. Barrett feels the weight come off the landing gear, the aircraft transitioning from ground machine to air machine. 70 miles per hour. He eases back on the stick. The main gear separates from concrete. The Zero is flying. The climb rate is extraordinary. Barrett watches the altimeter unwind 500 feet, 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet. The vertical speed indicator shows 3,000 feet per minute. The F6F Wildcat, a good aircraft by any measure, climbs at 2,200 feet per minute. The Zero is ascending 50% faster. He milks the gear up. The hydraulic system whines briefly, the main wheels retracting into wells in the wing. Drag drops noticeably. The Zero accelerates, still climbing, engine pulling hard in the thin morning air. 2,000 feet, 2,500 feet, 3,000 feet. Barrett levels at 5,000 feet and takes stock. The aircraft feels alive beneath him. Controls are light responsive, almost telepathic. He moves the stick left, the Zero banks instantly. Right, same immediate response. Elevator inputs produce crisp pitch changes. Rudder pedals give precise yaw control. This is a pilot's airplane. No hydraulic boost, no artificial aids, just pure mechanical connection between human and machine. Barrett can feel the air flowing over the control surfaces, translated through cables and pulleys to his hands and feet. It is like riding a thoroughbred horse, powerful and sensitive and eager. He tries a gentle turn. 30 degrees of bank-coordinated rudder. The Zero carves through the sky smoothly, no adverse yaw, no tendency to tighten or loosen the turn. Beautifully harmonized. He rolls out, checks his instruments. Oil pressure steady at 64 pounds per square inch. Coolant temperature 165 degrees. Fuel consumption showing 28 gallons per hour at cruise power. Everything normal. Barrett climbs to 10,000 feet. The engine does not falter. No stumbling, no roughness. The Japanese engineers designed this power plant to operate in the harsh environment of Pacific combat, and it shows. Reliability built into every component. At 10,000 feet, he starts his testing protocol. First, slow flight characteristics. Barrett pulls the throttle back, bleeding off airspeed. 200 miles per hour, 180, 160. The Zero remains stable, no wing drop, no pitch changes. 140 miles per hour, 120. Still flying, normally controls, still responsive. 100 miles per hour. Now he feels it. A slight burble in the airflow over the wings. The stall is approaching. He adds a touch of power, stabilizes at 95 miles per hour. The Zero mushes along, barely flying, but still controllable. Incredible slow-speed handling. In combat, this would allow turning maneuvers impossible for heavier American fighters. He advances the throttle, accelerates back to cruise speed. Second, high-speed handling. Barrett pushes the throttle to maximum continuous power. The Sakai responds instantly, RPM, climbing to 2,750 manifold pressure, increasing to 35 inches. The Zero accelerates rapidly, 250 miles per hour, 270, 290, 310. The airspeed indicator climbs past 320 miles per hour and Barrett tries a roll. He pushes the stick right. Nothing happens. He pushes harder. The stick moves, but the aircraft does not respond. The ailerons, fabric-covered surfaces on the outboard sections of the wing are frozen. Air pressure at high speed inflates the fabric, ballooning it outward, creating so much resistance that the control cables cannot move the surfaces. Barrett pulls hard on the stick, using both hands, straining against the forces. The Zero rolls, but slowly, grudgingly. At 320 miles per hour, what should be a crisp roll takes 5 seconds to achieve 45 degrees of bank. Unacceptable. In combat, 5 seconds is an eternity. 5 seconds means death. Fatal flaw number 1, high-speed aileron lockup. Barrett notes it mentally, already thinking through the implications. American fighters use metal-covered ailerons, rigid surfaces that maintain authority at all speeds. The Zero's fabric ailerons save weight, perhaps 30 pounds total, but they create a critical weakness. Above 200 knots, the Zero cannot roll quickly. It becomes predictable, vulnerable. He slows to 220 miles per hour, tries the roll again. Better response, but still sluggish. At 180 miles per hour, the ailerons work normally. The Zero can dogfight brilliantly at low speeds, but at high speeds it is crippled. American pilots need to know this. Engage the Zero at high speed. Force it into situations where its ailerons lock up. Boom and zoom attacks from altitude diving through the enemy formation at maximum velocity, rolling away before the Zero can respond. Barrett climbs to 15,000 feet for the next test. Third, negative G characteristics. This will test the engine's behavior under unusual flight conditions. Barrett levels the aircraft, stabilizes at 200 miles per hour, then pushes the stick forward abruptly. The nose drops. The horizon disappears below the cowling. Barrett's body lifts against the shoulder straps, weightless for a moment as the aircraft transitions to negative gravitational force. Objects float in the cockpit, dust particles, a pencil he brought, his checklist clipboard, and the engine dies. The sudden silence is shocking. The Sake stops firing instantly, RPM dropping from 2,500 to 0 in less than 2 seconds. The propeller windmills in the slipstream, driven by airflow alone, producing no thrust. Barrett has just become a glider at 15,000 feet. He pulls the stick back, recovering to level flight. Positive G returns. His weight settles back into the seat, and the engine coughs, sputters, then roars back to life. 4.7 seconds of dead silence, then normal operation resumes. Fatal flaw number 2, negative G fuel starvation. Barrett's mind races through the engineering. The Sake uses a float-type carburetor, a design common in aircraft engines where a small float maintains fuel level in a bowl, metering the mixture to the cylinders. Float carburetors work perfectly in level flight and positive G conditions. But under negative G, when the aircraft pushes over into a dive, the float and fuel behave erratically. The float rises, shutting off fuel flow. The engine starves. It quits. American fighters are starting to use pressure carburetors designs that force fuel into the engine regardless of attitude or G-forces. The latest models can operate at negative 4 Gs without interruption. The Zero cannot. Barrett tests it again. Push over into negative G. Engine dies in 1.2 seconds. Pull back to positive G. Engine restarts in 4.7 seconds. Repeatable, predictable, exploitable. He imagines the tactical application. An American pilot being chased by a Zero, unable to shake the enemy, watching tracer rounds stitching toward his aircraft. The American pushes into a dive, negative G, forcing the Zero's engine to quit. 4.7 seconds of silence. The Zero loses thrust, loses energy, falls behind. The American rolls hard, right at high speed, exploiting the Zero's locked ailerons and escapes. 12 words that will save 11,000 American lives. Dive negative. Roll right at high speed. Zero cannot follow. Barrett levels at 15,000 feet, breathing hard. The adrenaline is hitting him now, the realization of what he has discovered. These are not theoretical weaknesses. These are combat-decisive flaws. The Zero is a magnificent aircraft at low speed and positive G. But push it into high-speed maneuvering and negative G flight, and it becomes vulnerable. He continues testing for another 40 minutes. Structural limits. The Zero exhibits airframe stress at 6. 2 positive Gs concerning creaks and groans from the wing roots. American intelligence suspected the Zero was lightly built, and this confirms it. The F6F Wildcat can sustain 9 positive Gs. The Zero cannot. Endurance. Barrett monitors fuel consumption carefully. At cruise power, 28 gallons per hour. Total fuel capacity, 132 gallons internal. That gives 4.7 hours of flight time, translating to roughly 1,900 statute miles of range. Extraordinary. The Zero can escort bombers deep into enemy territory, patrol vast expanses of ocean, operate from distant island bases. The F6F Wildcat carries 144 gallons, but burns 60 gallons per hour, limiting range to 900 miles. The Zero has more than double the reach, but range comes at a cost. The Zero achieves its endurance by eliminating weight. No armor plating behind the pilot's seat, no bulletproof windscreen, no self-sealing fuel tanks. The aircraft trades protection for performance. A few hits from 50 caliber machine guns will shred the thin aluminum skin, ignite the unprotected fuel tanks, kill the unarmored pilot. Barrett descends to 5,000 feet and sets up for landing. He has been airborne for 58 minutes, his first flight in the Zero. His hands are shaking slightly, not from fear, but from concentration, from the mental effort of absorbing so much information so quickly. He enters the landing pattern, extends the landing gear, feels the drag increase as the wheels drop into the airstream. Approach speed 85 miles per hour. The Zero floats gently, still eager to fly, even at slow speed. Barrett nudges the throttle, adjusts his glide path, lines up with the runway centerline. The touchdown is smooth. Main gear first, a gentle chirp of rubber on concrete, then the tail wheel settles. Barrett lets the aircraft roll out, braking gently, feeling the weight transfer forward as speed bleeds away. He taxis back to the hangar. Ground crew members are waiting, watching their faces tense with anticipation. Barrett shuts down the engine. The sake winds down gradually, the propeller rotation slowing, finally stopping with one blade pointing straight down. Silence. Barrett sits in the cockpit for a moment, just breathing. The smell of death is still there, dried blood and rotted fabric and aviation oil. Takeshi Yamada's ghost sits beside him, a 19-year-old boy who wanted to be a civilian pilot after the war, who wrapped his broken ribs with medical tape because flying meant more than pain. Captain Robert Hayes approaches the aircraft. Hayes is the base intelligence officer, a man with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. He designed the testing protocol, specified the maneuvers Barrett should attempt, coordinated with the Bureau of Aeronautics to ensure maximum intelligence value from every flight. Hayes climbs onto the wing piers into the cockpit. "Well," Barrett pulls off his helmet, runs a hand through sweat-soaked hair. "I found it. I found how to kill them." Hayes leans closer. "Tell me." "The ailerons freeze above 200 knots. Fabric surfaces. They balloon with air pressure." "The Zero can't roll quickly at high speed." Hayes nods, making mental notes. "And the engine quits under -G. Float carburetor can't handle inverted flight. Push into a dive, their engine dies for almost 5 seconds. Hayes exhales slowly. Tactical implications. "We don't dogfight them at low speed. They'll win every time. Superior turning, superior climb, superior slow-speed handling. But we force them into high-speed engagements. Dive attacks from altitude. When they pursue, we push negative and roll right at speed. Their engine quits, their ailerons lock. They can't follow. We survive." Hayes is writing now, quick shorthand on a small notepad. "Structural limits. 6 Gs positive, maybe 4 negative. Lightly built. Our fighters are tougher. Armament. 2 7.7mm machine guns, 2 20mm cannons. Total ammunition, 1,360 rounds for the machine guns, 120 rounds for the cannons." "Good firepower, but the cannons are slow firing, maybe 500 rounds per minute cyclic rate." "Protection." Barrett shakes his head. "None. No armor, no self-sealing tanks. Hit the fuel system and it's a fireball. Hit the pilot and he's dead. The aircraft is built from aluminum less than 1 millimeter thick in places. Ours use aluminum twice that thickness plus armor plate." Hayes stops writing, looks up. "So the Zero wins by being lighter, faster climbing, more maneuverable, but loses by being fragile and limited at high speed." "Exactly. It's a different design philosophy. They sacrificed protection for performance. We can exploit that." Hayes closes his notebook. "How many more flights do you need?" Barrett considers. 23 more flights. He needs to test weapons employment formation, flying characteristics, carrier landing suitability, cold weather performance, high altitude behavior. He needs to verify every finding document, every number, explore every edge of the flight envelope. 23 more flights, 3 weeks. Hayes nods. "You have them. This aircraft does not leave the ground without you in the cockpit. No one else touches it. No one else learns what you're learning. The intelligence stays compartmentalized until we can distribute it properly." Barrett climbs out of the cockpit. His legs are stiff from sitting in the cramped space. The Japanese designed the Zero for smaller pilots. Barrett is 5 feet 11 inches tall, 168 pounds average for an American. But in this cockpit, he feels large, cramped. Yamada was probably 5'6", 130 pounds. The aircraft fit him perfectly. Barrett walks away from the Zero, leaving it sitting on the tarmac sun, glinting off the fresh American star painted over the original Japanese Hinamaru. The red circle is still visible beneath the blue star, a ghost of the aircraft's true allegiance. He thinks about his sons, 8 years old and 6 years old. If this war continues as projected, they will be draft age in 1953 and 1955. They might fly fighters in whatever war comes next. The knowledge Barrett is gathering today might save their lives in a decade. He thinks about Takeshi Yamada's mother in Hokkaido. She received a telegram in June saying her son died heroically. She does not know American engineers studied her son's aircraft like a biology class dissecting a frog. She does not know her son's death is about to kill thousands of his countrymen, that the intact Zero will doom Japanese air superiority in the Pacific. Barrett reaches the debriefing room, a small office with a desk, 3 chairs and a blackboard. He will spend the next 4 hours writing a detailed report of every observation, every measurement, every sensation from the flight. The report will be typed, duplicated, classified top secret, and distributed to fighter squadrons preparing for combat deployment. But first he sits alone for 5 minutes staring at his hands. They stopped shaking. He has flown 47 different aircraft types, Number 48 is the deadliest, the most graceful, the most flawed fighter he has ever encountered. It killed 427 American pilots in 9 months. It will kill thousands more before this war ends. Unless Harlan Barrett can teach American pilots how to beat it. 23 flights remaining. 72 hours of total flight time planned. Every minute in that cockpit is a minute spent with Takeshi Yamada's ghost, learning from a dead enemy, preparing to use his sacrifice against his own nation. Barrett picks up a pencil and begins to write. Flight number 1. Duration 58 minutes. Findings: fatal flaws discovered in high-speed aileron response and negative G fuel flow. Recommend immediate tactical revision for all fighter squadrons. The Zero is not invincible. It can be beaten. The pencil moves across the paper, forming words that will save 11,000 American lives. In the hangar outside, the Zero sits silent. Serial number 4593. The ghost plane from Akutan Island. The teacher that will never know its lessons doomed its creators. Tomorrow Barrett flies again. 23 more times he will climb into that blood-stained cockpit. 23 more times he will ask Takeshi Yamada's forgiveness. 23 more times he will betray a dead boy's trust to save his own nation. The numbers matter. The lives matter. The mission matters. But late at night, when Barrett lies awake in officer housing, listening to his sons breathe in the next room, he wonders if victory is supposed to feel this heavy. The scoreboard will say, America won. But scoreboards lie. September 21st, 1942, 03:42 hours. Barrett Family Quarters, Naval Air Station, North Island, Harlan. Barrett wakes screaming. His wife Sarah jolts upright beside him, hand on his chest, feeling his heart hammer like a piston at full throttle. The sheets are soaked. Barrett's hands claw at nothing, fighting invisible flames that crawled up his legs 30 minutes ago in the dream. This is the third night. Harlan. Sarah's voice cuts through the panic. You're home. You're safe. Barrett sits up, breathing hard, waiting for his heart to slow. The bedroom is dark except for moonlight through the window. Down the hall his sons sleep undisturbed, 8 years old and 6 years old, too young to understand why their father screams at 0342 hours. Same dream, Sarah asks. Barrett nods. He cannot speak yet. In the dream, he was strapped into the Zero's cockpit while 50 caliber rounds punched through the thin aluminum skin, fuel tanks igniting, flames eating through his flight suit. But it was not his face burning. It was Takeshi Yamada's. 19 years old, screaming in Japanese, clawing at a canopy that would not open. You need to talk to the flight surgeon, Sarah says. 3 nights, Harlan. 3 nights you've woken like this. I'm fine. You're not fine. You slept 4 hours last night, 3 hours the night before. The boys ask why you're always gone. Barrett swings his legs out of bed, feet on cold floor. I have 18 more flights. After that, it's done. 18 more nights of this. He does not answer. He walks to the kitchen, makes coffee in darkness, sits at the table, watching the sky lighten over San Diego Bay. The nightmares started the first night after flying the Zero. They are getting worse. Each night, the flames burn hotter. Each night, Yamada's face becomes clearer. Barrett knows what this is. Guilt. The rational part of his mind understands his mission is necessary. His work will save American lives. But the irrational part, the part that controls dreams, whispers something different. You are stealing secrets from a dead boy to kill his friends. He drinks coffee until 600 hours, then dresses for the flight line. Today is flight number 2. The Zero sits in the hangar under harsh work lights, ground crew performing pre-flight inspection. Ensign Thomas Park approaches with his clipboard, dark circles under his eyes. The restoration team has been working 18-hour days, ensuring every system functions perfectly. Morning, Commander. She's ready. We replaced the gun camera film, topped off fluids, ran the engine for 30 minutes yesterday evening. No squawks. Barrett nods. Armament test today. I'll fire the cannons over the range. Park shifts uncomfortably. Sir, about the test profile. Those 20mm Type 99 cannons, they produce significant recoil. The Zero's light only 5,300 pounds. When you fire, the nose is going to drop hard. I know. Just making sure you're prepared. Also, we only have 120 rounds total for the cannons, 60 per gun. Japanese ammunition can't get more. Make your shots count. Barrett climbs into the cockpit. The smell has changed. Less death, more aviation oil and his own sweat. But if he closes his eyes, he can still detect it. Blood. Decay. The faint organic rot that no amount of cleaning erased completely. He straps in. The seat cushion has molded to his body, now no longer Yamada's shape. The control stick grip is smooth where Barrett's hands rest, worn by friction and sweat. The Zero is becoming his. But at night in dreams, it reminds him whose it was first. Pre-flight checks complete. Engine start. The Nakajima Sakai catches on the first blade, settling into that characteristic purr, smooth and precise. Barrett taxis to the runway, receives clearance, advances the throttle. The Zero leaps forward. 65 miles per hour tail up. 80 miles per hour wheels leave concrete. The climb begins 3,000 feet per minute, pulling away from Earth like gravity is negotiable. Barrett levels at 8,000 feet over the Pacific, 15 miles offshore. Below the weapons range, a rectangular pattern of white buoys marking the safe firing zone. He arms the guns. 2 Type 97, 7.7mm machine guns in the nose. 2 Type 99, 20mm cannons in the wings. He lines up on a floating target raft range 400 yards, approaching at 220 miles per hour. The gun sight is crude by American standards. A simple ring and bead, no computing sight, no gyroscopic lead calculation. Japanese pilots relied on experience and instinct, not technology. Barrett centers the target in the ring, leads slightly for deflection, and presses the cannon trigger. The Zero bucks like a mule kicked it. The 20mm cannons fire with a distinctive thump-thump-thump, slow rate of fire, maybe 520 rounds per minute. Recoil slams the nose down violently. Barrett compensates with back pressure on the stick, fighting to keep the target centered. 3 seconds, 15 rounds fired. The recoil is worse than he expected. He releases the trigger, checks the target, splashes in the water near the raft. No hits. The recoil threw off his aim. Second pass. Barrett anticipates the recoil, this time pulling back harder on the stick as he fires. 2 seconds, 10 rounds. The raft explodes in splinters. Direct hits. He tries the 7.7mm machine guns next. Smooth, steady fire, minimal recoil. But the bullets are small, ineffective. Against American fighters with armor plating, these would be useless. The Zero pilot must rely primarily on the 20mm cannons for killing power. Barrett continues testing. Rate of fire, 520 rounds per minute for cannons, 900 rounds per minute for machine guns. Effective range, 300 yards maximum before trajectory drop becomes excessive. Ammunition capacity, 60 rounds per cannon, 680 rounds per machine gun. He expends all cannon ammunition, all but 200 machine gun rounds. The data is clear. The Zero's armament is adequate but not exceptional. American fighters mounting 6 Browning M250 caliber machine guns can deliver more effective firepower at longer range. Flight 2 ends after 73 minutes. Barrett lands, taxis to the hangar, shuts down the engine. His arms ache from fighting the recoil. His shoulders are tight from tension. Captain Hayes meets him at the aircraft. How'd the guns perform? Cannons hit hard, but the recoil is brutal. Light airframe can't absorb it. Pilot has to fight to stay on target. Barrett climbs out, stretches. Machine guns are toys. Won't penetrate armor. Zero pilot needs to make his cannon rounds count. Hayes writes notes. Tactical implications. American pilots should close to 200 yards before firing. Concentrated bursts. The Zero can't take hits, but if they miss the Zero's maneuverability, lets it escape. Barrett pauses. We need aircraft that can absorb return fire while delivering decisive hits. The Zero is glass. We need to be steel. That afternoon, Barrett writes his preliminary observations. 14 pages, single-spaced, technical and precise. He sends a copy to the Bureau of Aeronautics in Washington. He sends another to Grumman Aircraft on Long Island. He does not know that 4 months later, those 14 pages will influence critical design decisions on an aircraft that does not yet exist in production form. That night, Barrett sleeps 5 hours. The nightmare is the same. Yamada burning, screaming. But this time, when Barrett wakes at 04:19 hours, he stays in bed. Sarah sleeps beside him, breathing quietly. Down the hall, his sons dream whatever 8-year-olds and 6-year-olds dream. Barrett stares at the ceiling and thinks about the 20mm cannon rounds that hit the target raft. Each round cost approximately $3. $60 worth of Japanese ammunition expended in 6 seconds of trigger time, destroying a wooden raft worth maybe $12. War is mathematics. Bullets and targets, costs and benefits, lives saved versus lives taken. Yamada died to give Barrett this airplane. How many Japanese pilots will die because Barrett learned how to beat it? The mathematics are clear. The morality is not. September 23rd, 1942, 08:47 hours, 23,000 feet over the Pacific. Flight number 6. The critical test. Barrett has been airborne for 28 minutes, climbing steadily, allowing the engine to warm thoroughly before attempting the maneuver that might kill him. The sky is crystalline blue, visibility unlimited. No witnesses except seabirds and God. He levels at 23,000 feet. Temperature outside is -40 Fahrenheit. His fingers are numb inside his gloves despite the cockpit heater running at maximum. The Zero was designed for combat over China and the Pacific, but not at these altitudes for extended periods. Barrett checks his instruments one final time. Airspeed 200 miles per hour, engine parameters normal, oil pressure 64 pounds per square inch, coolant temperature 168 degrees. He takes 3 deep breaths, then pushes the control stick forward, hard. The nose drops violently. The horizon disappears, replaced by the blue-grey curve of the Pacific Ocean rushing upward. Barrett's body lifts against the shoulder straps as the aircraft transitions to negative gravitational force. His stomach lurches. The pencil he brought for notes floats upward weightless, drifting toward the canopy. And the engine dies. Not coughs, not sputters. Dies. Complete silence. The steady mechanical hum of the Nakajima Sakai, the sound that has filled Barrett's ears for the past 28 minutes, vanishes instantly, replaced by wind rush and the eerie whistle of air over the canopy. The propeller windmills uselessly driven by airflow producing zero thrust. Barrett counts. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. He pulls back on the stick. The nose rises. Positive G returns, pushing him down into the seat. The pencil falls back to the floor with a small click, and the engine coughs, sputters, catches, roars back to full power. Barrett checks his watch. 4.7 seconds from engine quit to restart. He checks his altimeter. Altitude lost during dead stick 1,316 feet. He tests it again. Push forward into negative G. Engine dies at 1.2 seconds into the maneuver. Pull back to positive G. Engine restarts 4.7 seconds after quit. Third test. Same results. 1.2 seconds to failure. 4. 7 seconds to restart. 1,316 feet of altitude lost. Consistent, repeatable, exploitable. Barrett pulls out his notebook and writes, hands shaking, not from cold, but from the realization of what he has discovered. Negative G test engine quit confirmed. Cause float-type carburetor cannot maintain fuel flow when aircraft transitions to negative acceleration. Float rises, shutting off fuel supply. Engine starves, quits immediately. Restart requires return to positive G. Delay 4.7 seconds. Altitude loss 1,316 feet average. Tactical application. American pilots under pursuit should execute sharp negative G dive. American pressure carburetors will continue operating. Zero's engine will quit. American pilot gains 4.7 second advantage, can extend at high speed and escape. Zero pilot must either break off pursuit or accept engine failure and altitude loss. Recommend immediate incorporation into all fighter tactics manuals. He closes the notebook. His hands are still shaking. This is the key. This is the weakness that will save thousands of American lives. Barrett thinks about Yamada. Did the Japanese pilot know his engine had this flaw? Did he ever push into negative G during training and experience the sickening silence? Or did he die on June 4th, never knowing his aircraft had a fatal weakness? The mathematics shift. One dead Japanese pilot airplane intact reveals secret that kills thousands of his countrymen. Barrett suddenly understands why the nightmares are getting worse. He is not just testing an aircraft. He is building a weapon from a corpse. September 28th, 1942. Flight number 11. Barrett sits in the Zero at 15,000 feet waiting. 2 miles away, Lieutenant Martin Webb flies an F6F Wildcat, also waiting. The two aircraft orbit in opposite directions, maintaining separation, preparing for mock combat. Webb is a combat veteran. 17 missions over Guadalcanal, 4 confirmed kills, 3 more probables. He has fought Zeros in real combat, survived encounters that killed better pilots, learned through blood and terror what works and what does not. Today, Webb gets to fight a Zero with knowledge instead of just courage. Barrett's radio crackles. "Commander, this is Webb. Ready when you are." "Copy. Engage on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark." Both aircraft turn inbound. Distance closes rapidly. 2 miles becomes 1 mile, becomes half a mile. Webb's Wildcat approaches at 240 miles per hour, slightly above the Zero's best maneuvering speed. Barrett pushes the throttle forward, accelerating to meet him. The two fighters merge at a combined closure rate of 460 miles per hour. Barrett pulls hard into a left turn, trying to get behind Webb's tail. The Zero responds instantly. Rotation rate incredible, the lightweight fighter carving through sky like a knife through water. 15 seconds. Barrett completes almost a full circle. But Webb does not turn with him. Webb continues straight, extending away, climbing slightly. The Wildcat cannot turn with the Zero, and Webb knows it. He refuses the fight on Barrett's terms. Barrett pursues, but the Wildcat maintains speed above 220 miles per hour. Barrett closes slowly, but not fast enough. Webb has 1,000 feet of altitude advantage, now energy in the bank. Webb reverses, diving back toward Barrett at high speed. Barrett tries to turn into him, but Webb flashes past at 280 miles per hour, simulates a firing burst, then zooms back to altitude before Barrett can respond. First engagement, Webb survives. They reset. Second engagement. This time, Webb attacks from above, diving at 290 miles per hour. Barrett sees him coming, turns hard to spoil the deflection shot. The Zero rotates beautifully, but Webb does not try to follow the turn. He extends away at high speed, climbs again, resets. Second engagement. Webb survives. Third engagement. Webb gets careless. He slows to 160 miles per hour, trying to get a better firing solution. Barrett, lurking below, pulls up hard and gets inside Webb's turn radius. The Zero's superior maneuverability dominates. Barrett simulates a 2-second cannon burst. Webb's Wildcat would be shredded. Third engagement, Barrett wins. They continue. 10 engagements total. Webb survives 9. After landing, Webb approaches Barrett at the hangar flight suit, dark with sweat, despite the cool temperature. "That's how we beat them," Webb says. "Don't fight their fight. Stay fast. Stay high. Boom and zoom. Never turn with them. Never slow down." Barrett nods. "But you made a mistake on engagement 3. You slowed down." "I did, and you killed me for it." Webb lights a cigarette with shaking hands. "But here's the thing, Commander. In real combat, I wouldn't have made that mistake. Because in real combat, I know that Zero will kill me if I slow down. Fear keeps me disciplined." He exhales smoke. "Your test today proved the tactics work, but it also proved something else. The Zero is only beatable if the American pilot has discipline. If he gets cocky, if he tries to dogfight, he dies. Then we train discipline. We do. And we give them an aircraft that rewards discipline. The Wildcat is tough, but it's not good enough. We need something faster, something that climbs better, something with more firepower." Barrett thinks about the preliminary reports he sent to Grumman. "They're working on it." Webb drops his cigarette, crushes it with his boot heel. "When you finish your report, Commander, make it clear. The Zero is beatable, but only if our pilots fight smart. Only if they use their advantages and avoid the Zero's strengths. One mistake, and they're dead." That evening, Barrett adds a section to his growing report, Tactical Summary. The Zero dominates turning engagements below 200 knots. American pilots who attempt low-speed dogfights will lose. Victory requires discipline. American fighters must maintain speed above 220 knots minimum, preferably 250 knots or higher. Attack from altitude using diving attacks. Extend away before the Zero can respond. Never attempt to turn with a Zero unless holding significant altitude advantage. Use teamwork. Engage in pairs with mutual support. One aircraft attacks, one covers. If either aircraft is threatened, both extend to safety. The Zero's weaknesses are exploitable, but exploitation requires training discipline and strict adherence to doctrine. He writes for 4 hours. When he finishes, it is past midnight. Sarah is asleep. The boys are asleep. The house is quiet except for the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Barrett walks to his son's bedroom, stands in the doorway watching them breathe. 8 years old and 6 years old. Too young to understand what their father is doing. Too young to know their father is building knowledge from a dead boy's airplane knowledge that will kill thousands of men their age on the other side of the Pacific. If this war continues as projected, his sons will be draft age in 1953 and 1955. They might fly fighters in whatever comes next. The knowledge Barrett is gathering might save their lives in a decade. Is that justification enough? Barrett does not know. He closes their door quietly and returns to his desk. 17 more flights, 17 more opportunities to learn, 17 more nights of Yamada burning in his dreams. October 7th, 1942. Flight number 18. The definitive test. Barrett versus Webb, but this time Webb knows everything. The aileron lockup above 200 knots, the engine failure under -G, the structural limitations, the lack of armor protection. Webb's Wildcat is waiting at 15,000 feet when Barrett arrives. They merge for the first engagement. Webb keeps his speed high, approaching at 240 miles per hour. Barrett turns into him. The Zero rotates beautifully, but Webb does not follow. He extends, climbs, resets. Same tactic as before, but executed with more confidence now. Barrett pursues. Webb suddenly pushes into a steep dive, inducing -G. Webb's Pratt & Whitney R1830 engine keeps running. Barrett's Nakajima Sakai dies instantly. 4.7 seconds of silence. Barrett is a glider. Webb pulls out of the dive 1,400 feet below, rolls hard right at 260 miles per hour and escapes. Barrett's ailerons are frozen at this speed. He cannot follow the roll. Webb survives. Second engagement. Webb attacks from above, diving at 290 miles per hour, fires a simulated burst as he passes, then zooms back to altitude before Barrett can turn to engage. Textbook, boom and zoom. Barrett never gets a shot. Webb survives. They continue. 10 engagements. Webb survives 9. The only victory Barrett achieves is when Webb deliberately slows to test a theory, dropping to 160 miles per hour, allowing Barrett's superior turning ability to dominate. After landing, Barrett sits in the Zero's cockpit for 10 minutes, not moving, just thinking. Webb climbs onto the wing. "Your report is going to save a lot of lives, Commander." Barrett looks up. "It's going to take a lot of lives, too. Japanese lives." Webb nods slowly. "War does that. But they started this. Pearl Harbor, Wake Island, Philippines. They wanted this fight." He pauses. "My brother was on the Arizona. He burned to death in his bunk while Japanese aircraft strafed the survivors in the water. So, yeah, your report is going to kill Japanese pilots. Good. They've earned it." Barrett says nothing. Webb's logic is sound. Revenge is justified. Justice demands retribution. But in Barrett's dreams, it is not Admiral Yamamoto burning, not the pilots who attacked Pearl Harbor. It is Takeshi Yamada, 19 years old, a boy from a fishing village who wanted to be a civilian pilot after the war. War does not care about nuance. It does not distinguish between guilty and innocent, between aggressors and conscripts. It just counts bodies. Barrett climbs out of the Zero, 6 more flights remaining. Then he writes the final report. Then the knowledge spreads across the Pacific Fleet. Then American pilots implement the tactics. Then Japanese pilots start dying in large numbers. Then the scoreboard starts counting. October 15th, 1942, 14:17 hours, flight number 24, the final test. Barrett has been flying the Zero for 25 days. He has logged 29 hours and 14 minutes in this cockpit. He has pushed this aircraft to its limits and beyond, exploring every capability, documenting every flaw, learning its secrets and its lies. Today, he simply flies. No test protocol, no data collection, just experiencing the Zero as Yamada must have experienced it. He takes off, climbs to 10,000 feet and levels off. The sky is clear. The ocean below is dark blue, nearly black, textured by wind into corrugations that stretch to the horizon. Barrett relaxes his grip on the control stick. The Zero flies itself stable and balanced. He makes small inputs. Left the aircraft bank smoothly. Right, same graceful response. Pull the nose, rises. Push, it descends. This is a beautiful aircraft. That is the terrible truth Barrett has learned. The Mitsubishi A6M0 is one of the finest fighter planes ever built. It is a triumph of aeronautical engineering, a masterpiece of design that prioritizes performance over everything else. But those priorities come with costs. No armor means dead pilots. No self-sealing tanks means fires. Fabric ailerons mean high-speed vulnerability. Float carburetor means negative G weakness. Lightweight structure means fragility under combat stress. Mitsubishi's designers made conscious choices. They chose performance over protection. They chose range over ruggedness. They chose agility over durability. Those choices created an aircraft that dominated the Pacific for 9 months. Those same choices will doom it when American fighters catch up. Barrett flies for 90 minutes, burning fuel, thinking about the boy who died in this seat. Yamada never got to experience the Zero's full potential. He flew perhaps 20 missions, maybe 30 hours total in type. He died on an emergency landing attempt, a victim of ground fire and bad luck, never knowing his airplane would betray his nation. At 15:39 hours, Barrett enters the landing pattern for the final time. He extends the landing gear, feels the drag increase. Approach speed, 85 miles per hour. The Zero floats like a feather, still eager to fly, even at slow speed. The main wheels touch concrete with a gentle chirp. The tail settles. Barrett lets the aircraft roll out, braking smoothly, feeling the weight transfer forward. He taxis to the hangar. Ground crew members are waiting. Ensign Park has a camera. The Navy wants documentation. Barrett shuts down the engine. The Nakajima Sakai winds down gradually, propeller rotation slowing, stopping with one blade pointed straight down. Silence. Barrett sits for 5 minutes alone in the cockpit, saying goodbye to a machine that has taught him more than any aircraft he has ever flown. When he climbs out, Park takes photographs. Barrett poses beside the Zero, hand on the wing, trying to look professional. But his expression is somber. This is not a victory photograph. This is a memorial portrait. 24 flights, sir, Park says. You're done. Barrett nods. Now comes the hard part. What's that? Writing it all down. Making it useful. turning 29 hours of flight time into a weapon that kills thousands of people. Park lowers the camera, uncomfortable. You did what needed to be done, Commander. Yes, I did. Barrett touches the Zero's fuselage one last time. That doesn't make it easy. October 16th to 21st, 1942. Barrett's office, Naval Air Station, North Island. For 6 days, Barrett writes, 16 hours per day breaks only for meals and 4 hours of sleep. The nightmares have stopped. He is too exhausted to dream. The report grows 20 pages, 50 pages, 80 pages, 100 pages. Section 1. Performance characteristics. Every number verified by multiple flights. Maximum speed, 331 miles per hour at 14,930 feet. Climb rate, 3,000 feet per minute at sea level. Service ceiling, 33,790 feet. Range, 1,929 statute miles with internal fuel only. The Zero's performance is impressive but not supernatural. American fighters can match it if designed properly. Section 2. Handling qualities. The Zero is exceptionally maneuverable below 200 knots. Turn radius at optimum speed, 785 feet. Roll rate at 150 knots, 180 degrees per second. But above 200 knots, aileron effectiveness degrades rapidly due to fabric surface ballooning. At 250 knots, aileron forces become prohibitive. At 300 knots, the Zero cannot execute rapid rolls. American fighters with metal ailerons and hydraulic boost maintain authority at all speeds. Section 3. Structural limits. Maximum demonstrated positive G 6.2. Maximum demonstrated negative G 3.8. Airframe exhibits stress indicators at these limits. Wing root creaking, fuselage groaning, not recommended for high G combat maneuvering. American fighters certified to 9 positive Gs possess decisive structural advantage. Section 4. Power plant characteristics. Nakajima, NK1C, Sakai 12, 14 cylinders. 940 horsepower at 2,750 revolutions per minute. Reliable and smooth but exhibits critical flaw. Float-type carburetor fails under negative G conditions. Engine quits 1.2 seconds after negative G initiation. Restart requires return to positive G and consumes 4.7 seconds. Altitude loss during engine out period 1,316 feet average. Flaw is inherent to carburetor design and cannot be corrected without engine replacement. American pressure carburetors operate at negative 4 Gs to positive 9 Gs without interruption. Section 5 Armament. 2 Type 97, 7.7mm machine guns, 680 rounds each. 2 Type 99 20mm cannons, 60 rounds each. Cannon rate of fire 520 rounds per minute. Machine gun rate of fire 900 rounds per minute. Effective range 300 yards maximum. The cannons are powerful but slow firing and limited by ammunition capacity. The machine guns are inadequate against armored targets. American fighters with 6 Browning M250 caliber machine guns deliver superior volume of fire and effective range beyond 400 yards. Section 6 Protection. Zero has no armor plating, no bulletproof windscreen, no self-sealing fuel tanks. Airframe skin is aluminum alloy approximately 0.8 millimeters thick. Equivalent American fighters use aluminum 1.6 millimeters thick plus armor plate, totaling 212 pounds. The Zero is extremely vulnerable to gunfire. Hits to fuel system result in immediate catastrophic fire. Hits to pilot result in immediate fatality. The Zero achieves performance through weight reduction. It trades protection for agility. This is a fatal compromise when facing opponents with adequate firepower. Section 7 Tactical Recommendations. Barrett spends 3 hours writing this section. It is the most important part of the entire report. This is where theory becomes practice, where engineering analysis becomes life-saving doctrine. He writes, revises, rewrites. The words must be clear, the instructions must be unambiguous. Pilots will implement these tactics in combat. Misunderstanding means death. Final version. American pilots must avoid low-speed turning engagements where the Zero's superior maneuverability dominates. Victory requires discipline and adherence to the following principles. First, maintain speed above 250 knots at all times. Speed is life. Speed provides energy for attacks and escapes. Speed negates the Zero's turning advantage. Second, attack from altitude using diving attacks. The Zero climbs well, but cannot accelerate quickly. Diving attacks exploit American aircraft's superior dive performance and high-speed handling. Third, when pursued by a Zero, execute a negative G pushover, followed by high-speed extension. The Zero's engine will quit for 4.7 seconds. This provides opportunity to extend beyond gun range. At speeds above 250 knots, execute hard right roll to exploit Zero's aileron lockup. The Zero cannot follow rapid rolls at high speed. Fourth, deliver short concentrated bursts when firing opportunities arise. The Zero's lack of protection means brief bursts are sufficient for kills. Do not waste ammunition on prolonged firing runs. Fifth, use teamwork. Engage in pairs with mutual support. One aircraft attacks while the other covers. If either aircraft is threatened, both extend to safety and reset. The Zero's advantages are negated by coordinated attacks. Sixth, never dogfight a Zero unless holding significant altitude advantage or numerical superiority. The Zero wins turning fights below 200 knots. American pilots who forget this principle will die. These tactics are not theoretical. They are verified by 18 mock combat engagements against experienced pilots. Implementation requires training and discipline, but American pilots who understand the Zero's weaknesses and apply these recommendations will possess decisive advantages. The Zero can be beaten. It will be beaten. This report provides the knowledge necessary to ensure American victory in aerial combat. Barrett reads the final paragraph 5 times, then adds one more sentence. The Mitsubishi A6M0 is an exceptional aircraft designed by brilliant engineers and flown by skilled pilots. Defeating it requires respect for its capabilities and ruthless exploitation of its weaknesses. Underestimating the Zero kills American pilots. Understanding it saves them. He signs the report. Harlan Barrett, Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy. October 21st, 1942, 127 pages. 29 hours of flight time condensed into 47,000 words. A weapon built from a dead boy's airplane. October 22nd, 1942. Captain Hayes's office. Hayes reads the entire report in one sitting. 4 hours of concentrated reading, making marginal notes, occasionally asking questions. When he finishes, he removes his reading glasses and looks at Barrett with an expression of profound respect. This is the most important intelligence document of the Pacific War. It's just numbers and observations. Hayes taps the report with one finger. It's the difference between 18,000 pilot casualties and 7,000. 11,000 American lives, Commander. Your 24 flights just saved 11,000 lives. Barrett feels nothing. The mathematics are clear. The morality is not. How many copies do you want distributed? Hayes asks. Every fighter squadron in the Pacific Fleet. Every training command, every carrier air group, every replacement pilot pipeline. I want this information in the hands of every pilot who might face a Zero. Hayes nods. Done. I'll have it duplicated and classified top secret. Distribution begins tomorrow. He pauses. There's one more thing. Grumman Aircraft has been requesting technical data. They're designing a new fighter specifically to counter the Zero. Your preliminary reports helped, but they need the complete analysis. Permission to send them a copy. Barrett considers. An aircraft designed using knowledge from the Akutan Zero, a weapon built on a foundation of betrayed secrets. Yes. Send it. Hayes extends his hand. Congratulations, Commander. You've done something extraordinary. Barrett shakes his hand, but says nothing. Extraordinary. The word feels wrong. Necessary, perhaps. Important, certainly. But extraordinary implies something worthy of celebration. Barrett does not feel like celebrating. That night he sleeps 8 hours without nightmares. The dreams have stopped because the work is finished. Or maybe they stopped because Barrett has accepted what he has done. He woke up for 24 mornings and climbed into a dead boy's airplane. He stole secrets. He documented weaknesses. He turned tragedy into tactical advantage. The scoreboard will say he succeeded. The scoreboard will say American lives were saved. The scoreboard will say this was the right thing to do. But lying in bed at 0342 hours, wide awake despite the exhaustion, Barrett knows something the scoreboard will never count. Every Japanese pilot who dies, using the tactics from his report, will die because Takeshi Yamada crashed in an Alaskan bog instead of ditching in the ocean where his airplane would have sunk. Every American pilot who survives will live because Barrett sat in a blood-stained seat for 29 hours and learned how to kill efficiently. The mathematics are perfect. The morality is impossible. Barrett rises, walks to his desk and writes one final document. Not for the Navy, not for Hayes, not for official records. A letter he knows he will never send. Dear Mrs. Yamada, your son died on June 4th, 1942, on Akutan Island. His aircraft crashed during an emergency landing. His death was instant. He did not suffer. I am the American pilot who flew his airplane. I spent 29 hours learning its secrets. I wrote a report that will be used to kill Japanese pilots. Your son was 19 years old. He wanted to be a civilian pilot after the war. He loved flying more than he feared pain. He wrote you a letter saying not to cry if he did not return. I have 2 sons. They are 8 and 6. If this war continues, they may fly fighters someday. The knowledge I gained from your son's airplane may save their lives. I do not know if that makes this right or wrong. I only know that war forces impossible mathematics. Your son died serving his country. His airplane is now serving mine. I am sorry for your loss. I am sorry I cannot be sorry for what I have done with that loss. Respectfully, Harlan Barrett. He folds the letter, places it in an envelope, seals it, and puts it in his desk drawer. He will keep it for 32 years. February 18th, 1943. Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation, Bethpage, Long Island, New York. Dr. Howard Freeman reads Barrett's report for the 3rd time. He has memorized the critical sections. He has made notes in the margins. He has cross-referenced every specification with Grumman's own intelligence estimates. Everything Barrett documented confirms what Freeman suspected. The Zero wins through weight reduction and aerodynamic refinement. It sacrifices protection for performance. It is built to minimum tolerances with no safety margins. Freeman walks to the engineering drafting room where the F6F Hellcat exists only as blueprints and calculations. Leroy Grumman stands at a table reviewing the latest design iterations. Howard, you've read the Barrett report. Freeman nods. 3 times. It changes everything and nothing. Grumman looks up curious. Explain. Here's what most people don't understand. We started designing the F6F in early 1941. We made the critical decision to use the R2800 engine on April 26, 1942. That was 6 weeks before the Zero crashed in Alaska. We committed to armor protection, self-sealing tanks, and rugged construction before we knew the Zero's exact specifications. So the Akutan Zero didn't influence the Hellcat's design. I didn't say that. Freeman taps Barrett's report. The F6F was designed to beat the Zero. The Akutan Zero ensured the F6F would dominate the Zero. Timing, Leroy. Timing is everything. Freeman opens the report to Section 4 power plant characteristics. Barrett discovered the carburetor fails under -G. We were already planning to use a pressure carburetor in the F6F because it's superior technology, but now we know exactly why it's critical. We can test our carburetor to verify it operates at -4 Gs. We can guarantee it works where the Zero's fails. He flips to Section 2, handling qualities. Barrett documented the aileron lockup above 200 knots. We were already planning hydraulic aileron boost because the F6F is heavier and needs it. But now we know the exact speed where the Zero becomes vulnerable. We can design our boost system to maintain full authority to 400 knots. We can guarantee we dominate where the Zero fails. Grumman smiles. So Barrett's report lets us optimize what we already planned. Exactly. The F6F will weigh 12,598 pounds fully loaded. The Zero weighs 5,313 pounds. We're building an aircraft that's 2.37 times heavier. That should be a disaster. But the R2800 produces 2,000 horsepower. The Zero's Sake produces 940. We have 2.13 times more power, close enough to overcome the weight penalty. Freeman pulls out a calculator, runs numbers. Power loading Zero has 5.64 pounds per horsepower. F6F has 6.30 pounds per horsepower. We're slightly worse, but not catastrophically. And we compensate with advantages the Zero cannot match. He lists them on a blackboard. Armor plating 212 pounds protecting the pilot. Self-sealing fuel tanks, 86 pounds of rubber bladders. Hydraulic aileron boost. Full control authority at 400 knots. Pressure carburetor. Operates -4 Gs to +9 Gs. Structural strength. Certified to 9 positive Gs, 6 negative Gs. Armament. 6 Browning M250 caliber machine guns, 2,400 rounds total. Grumman studies the list. The Zero is a scalpel. We're building a hammer. A very fast, very powerful, very well-protected hammer. Freeman closes Barrett's report. The Zero wins by being light and agile. We'll win by being strong and relentless. When an F6F engages a Zero, the American pilot can make mistakes and survive. The Japanese pilot cannot. One mistake, one hit to his unprotected fuel tank and he's dead. How long until production? First aircraft are rolling off the assembly line now. We'll deliver the first squadron-ready Hellcats to the fleet by late February. Training begins in March. Combat deployment by late summer. Grumman nods slowly. So, in 6 months, we'll know if this works. 6 months, Freeman agrees. By late 1943, F6F Hellcats will be fighting Zeros in the Pacific. We'll know if Barrett's tactics work. We'll know if our design decisions were correct. We'll know if we built a Zero killer or just a very expensive failure. Freeman looks at the blueprints spread across the drafting table. The F6F Hellcat. Brutal and functional. No elegance, no grace, just overwhelming power and protection. The Zero is beautiful, the Hellcat is not. But war does not reward beauty, it rewards effectiveness. And the Hellcat, designed before the Zero was captured but perfected after its secrets were revealed, will be devastatingly effective. Freeman knows this. The mathematics are clear. In 18 months, the kill ratio will prove him right. 19-1. 19 Japanese aircraft destroyed for every Hellcat lost in air combat. The ratio will haunt the Pacific theater. It will break Japanese naval aviation. It will turn the tide of the air war. And it will all trace back to 24 flights in a captured Zero, documented in 127 pages written by a pilot who will carry guilt for 32 years. But that is 18 months in the future. Right now, in February 1943, Freeman just has blueprints and calculations and faith that American engineering can turn Japanese secrets into American victory. He returns to his office and begins writing technical specifications for the production F6F. Every decision informed by Barrett's report. Every system designed to exploit Zero weaknesses. The weapon is taking shape. Metal and mathematics, blueprints and ballistics. Soon it will become real. Soon it will fly. Soon it will kill. The scoreboard will start counting, and the number will climb to 19. February 18th, 1943. Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation, Bethpage, Long Island, New York. Dr. Howard Freeman stands in front of a blackboard covered in equations, chalk dust coating his sleeves, exhaustion making his eyes burn. He is 45 years old, chief aeronautical engineer for Grumman, and he has not slept more than 4 hours in any night for the past 3 weeks. The problem consumes him: how to build a fighter that can beat the Zero without becoming the Zero. On his desk sits a copy of Barrett's report. 127 pages stamped top secret in red ink, delivered by armed courier on October the 24th, 1942. Freeman has read it 11 times. He has memorized the critical numbers. Maximum speed 331 miles per hour. Climb rate 3,000 feet per minute. Turn radius 785 feet at optimum speed. Weight 5,313 pounds loaded. Aileron lockup above 200 knots. Carburetor failure under -G. Structural limit 6.2 positive Gs. The data arrived at the perfect moment. Grumman's new fighter, designated F6F, was in prototype testing, but not yet committed to production. Changes could still be incorporated. Lessons could still be learned. But Freeman faces a contradiction. The Zero wins by being light. Grumman's fighter will be heavy. The Zero sacrifices protection for performance. Grumman's fighter must have both. The laws of physics do not care about engineering ambition. More weight means less performance. Always. Inevitably. Unless. Freeman circles a number on the blackboard. 2,000 horsepower. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine, 18 cylinders of American industrial might, producing 2,000 horsepower at 2,700 revolutions per minute. 53% more power than the Zero's Nakajima Sake. Can 53% more power overcome 137% more weight? Freeman runs the calculations again. Thrust-to-weight ratios, power loading, wing loading, drag coefficients. The numbers dance across the blackboard, chalk squeaking equations building into a conclusion that seems impossible but might be true. The F6F will weigh 12,598 pounds fully loaded. The Zero weighs 5,313 pounds. The F6F is 2.37 times heavier. But the R2800 produces 2.13 times more power than the Sake. Close. Very close. Not quite enough to match the Zero's climb rate, but close enough that tactics can compensate. And the F6F will have advantages the Zero cannot match. Armor plating, 212 pounds of hardened steel protecting the pilot. Self-sealing fuel tanks, 86 pounds of rubber and reinforced bladders that close automatically when punctured. Hydraulic aileron boost full control authority at 400 miles per hour. Pressure carburetor engine runs perfectly at -4 Gs to +9 Gs. The F6F will be a tank with wings. The Zero is a racing bicycle with guns. Freeman puts down the chalk and walks to the window. Outside, the first production F6F sits on the tarmac, morning sun glinting off bare metal. It looks brutal compared to the Zero's graceful lines. The cowling is massive, housing the enormous R2800. The fuselage is thick, angular, purposeful. The wings are straight and functional. No elegant taper, just efficient lift generation. It is not beautiful, but it might be unbeatable. The telephone on Freeman's desk rings. He answers. Freeman. Howard, it's Leroy. Leroy Grumman, company president, the man whose name is on the building. I just got off the phone with Buer. They want to accelerate production. First deliveries to the fleet by February. Freeman checks his calendar. February 1943. 4 months away. That's ambitious. It's necessary. The reports from the Pacific are bad, Howard. We're losing pilots faster than we can train replacements. The Wildcat is a good airplane, but it's not good enough. We need the Hellcat in combat now. Freeman looks at the prototype again. We can do it. But I need confirmation on one thing. The Barrett report recommends exploiting the Zero's high-speed aileron lockup. Our hydraulic boost system prevents that in the F6F, correct? Correct. We've tested it to 420 miles per hour. Full aileron authority maintained throughout the speed range. And the pressure carburetor handles -G without interruption. Tested to -4 Gs. No fuel flow issues. The engine keeps running no matter what attitude or acceleration the pilot induces. Freeman nods, even though Grumman cannot see him through the phone line. Then we've built the Zero killer. Every weakness Barrett found, we've corrected. The F6F addresses them all. Good. Because in 6 months, we need to be producing 1 Hellcat per hour. Can your production team handle that? 1 aircraft per hour, 24 aircraft per day, 168 per week, 672 per month. We'll handle it. Freeman hangs up and returns to the blackboard. He erases the equations and writes a single sentence in large letters: F6F Hellcat, the weapon Barrett's knowledge built. August 31st, 1943. Marcus Island, Central Pacific. 0847 hours. Lieutenant Merritt McCrae sits in the cockpit of F6F Hellcat number 23, hands sweating inside his gloves despite the 80-degree temperature. He is 23 years old, 412 flight hours, total time 0 combat missions, and he is about to face the enemy for the first time. His squadron VF-9 launched from USS Yorktown 17 minutes ago. 24 Hellcats, brand new aircraft, with only 190 hours total flight time on the airframes flown by pilots averaging 380 hours experience. They are the tip of the spear, the first Hellcat squadron in combat, carrying the burden of proving whether Grumman's fighter can actually beat the Zero. McCrae has read Barrett's report so many times he can recite passages from memory. Dive negative, roll right at high speed, Zero cannot follow. The words are burned into his brain, a mantra repeated through months of training, practiced until the maneuver became instinct. But knowing and doing are different things. Reading about combat and experiencing it are separated by a chasm of fear and violence that no amount of training can bridge. Marcus Island appears ahead, a small volcanic rock barely large enough for an airstrip occupied by Japanese forces since the war's beginning. Intelligence reports 22 Zero fighters on the ground. The American mission destroy them before they can intercept the bomber strike following 30 minutes behind. McCrae's radio crackles. Bandits 2 o'clock, low 6 miles, count 20 plus. His heart rate spikes. 20 Zeros, airborne. Not on the ground as intelligence predicted. The Japanese knew the Americans were coming. Squadron commander's voice calm and professional. All flights engage as briefed. Maintain speed. Use altitude. Execute Barrett maneuvers as necessary. Brake. The formation splits. McCrae's Division 4 Hellcats angles toward the climbing Zeros. The Japanese fighters are visible now, small, dark shapes against the blue-green ocean, distinctive silhouettes that McCrae has studied in recognition training. Elliptical wings, rounded wingtips. The enemy. Distance closes rapidly. 3 miles, 2 miles, 1 mile. McCrae's finger rests on the trigger. 6. Browning. M250 caliber machine guns, 400 rounds per gun, 2,400 rounds total. He has never fired these guns in anger. In training, he shot at towed banners and floating targets. Now he will shoot at men. The Zeros pull up to meet the Hellcats. Classic Japanese tactic: climb to advantageous position, use superior maneuverability to force turning engagement. But McCrae's division does not turn. They maintain 280 miles per hour, approaching in a shallow dive speed and altitude their weapons. First Zero enters McCrae's gun sight, range 600 yards, too far. He waits. 500 yards, still too far. 400 yards. The Zero is growing larger, filling the windscreen pilot visible in the cockpit. 300 yards. McCrae presses the trigger. The Hellcat shudders. 6 machine guns fire simultaneously, 800 rounds per minute per gun, 4,800 rounds per minute total. The noise is devastating, a chainsaw tearing through metal. Tracers arc toward the Zero bright orange lines connecting hunter and prey. 2.3 seconds. 47 rounds fired. The Zero explodes. Not catches fire. Not trails smoke. Explodes. The wings separate from the fuselage in a violent eruption of flame and debris. The fuel tanks, unprotected, ignite instantly when 50 caliber incendiary rounds penetrate the thin aluminum skin. The aircraft becomes a fireball, pieces tumbling toward the ocean 8,000 feet below. McCrae's brain struggles to process what just happened. 2.3 seconds from trigger press to complete destruction. The Zero disintegrated like it was made of paper. Barrett's report was right. Section 6 protection. Zero has no armor plating, no self-sealing fuel tanks. Aircraft is extremely vulnerable to gunfire. McCrae does not have time to think further. A second Zero appears in his windscreen, turning hard left, trying to get behind him, but the Zero's turn radius, so effective at low speed, cannot overcome the Hellcat's speed advantage. McCrae extends away climbing, using his 2,000 horsepower engine to pull away from the pursuit. The Zero follows but cannot close the distance. McCrae reaches 12,000 feet, reverses, and dives back toward the fight. 280 miles per hour becomes 320 miles per hour. The Hellcat accelerates in the dive, heavy and fast, a falling anvil with guns. The Zero sees him coming, tries to roll away. But at 320 miles per hour, the Zero's ailerons are locked. The fabric control surfaces balloon with air pressure, immovable. The Japanese pilot pulls hard on the stick, straining, but the Zero cannot roll quickly. McCrae fires again. 3.1 seconds, 61 rounds. The Zero's left wing tears away at the root. The aircraft snap rolls inverted and plunges toward the ocean. 2 kills. 4.4 seconds of trigger time. 108 rounds expended. McCrae has 2,292 rounds remaining, enough for 20 more kills if his accuracy holds. The engagement lasts 19 minutes. When the Hellcats disengage and return to Yorktown, the count is final: 6 Zeros destroyed on the ground by strafing runs, 16 destroyed in aerial combat. Total 22 Japanese fighters eliminated. American losses: 2 F6Fs, both to anti-aircraft fire. 0 losses in air-to-air combat, 0. Kill ratio in aerial combat, 16-0. Infinite. McCrae lands on Yorktown with hands still shaking. He climbs out of the cockpit, legs unsteady, adrenaline crash hitting him hard. The maintenance chief approaches with a camera, wants a photo of the pilot who scored 2 kills on his first mission. McCrae poses, trying to look professional, but his mind is elsewhere. He is thinking about the Zero pilot in the first aircraft, the one who exploded in 2.3 seconds. Did he have time to know he was dying? Did he feel pain, or was it instant? Did he have a family, a wife, children waiting for him to return? McCrae will never know. The pilot's name, his story, his dreams, all of it vaporized in 47 rounds of 50 caliber ammunition. The scoreboard says McCrae won, 2-0, but scoreboards lie. June 19th, 1944. Philippines Sea, 140 miles west of Saipan. 0847 hours. Harlan Barrett stands on the flight deck of USS Essex, binoculars pressed to his eyes, watching the sky to the west. He is 34 years old now, promoted to commander, assigned to Carrier Air Group 15 as a tactical observer. His job is to watch Hellcat squadrons in combat and verify whether the tactics from his report are being implemented correctly. But today he is witnessing something unprecedented. The largest carrier air battle in history is about to unfold. Task Force 5815. American aircraft carriers, 7 fleet carriers, and 8 light carriers. Total aircraft, 900, including 480 F6F Hellcats. The most powerful naval aviation force ever assembled. Approaching from the west, 9 Japanese carriers, launching wave after wave of aircraft. Intelligence estimates 370 enemy planes inbound. The Japanese are committing everything they have to this battle, attempting to destroy the American fleet in one decisive engagement. It is called Operation Ago by the Japanese. The Americans will call it the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Barrett's radio crackles. Combat Information Center, calling all air defense coordinators. Raid 1 detected. 69 bogies bearing 265 degrees distance, 80 miles Angels, 18,000. Vector the cap for intercept. 72 Hellcats launch in response, climbing rapidly to 24,000 feet. Barrett watches them go, dark shapes against white clouds, heavy fighters carrying the weight of American industrial might. The Japanese strike approaches. Barrett can see them now through binoculars, a formation of Zeros and dive bombers holding tight formation, unaware that a storm of Hellcats is diving toward them from 6,000 feet above. The Hellcats attack. Barrett cannot see individual engagements from the carrier deck, but he can see the results. Black smoke trails arcing toward the ocean. Aircraft burning, tumbling, disintegrating. The sky fills with debris and parachutes and falling wreckage. 15 minutes after first contact, Raid 1 is destroyed. Of 69 Japanese aircraft, 42 are shot down before reaching the fleet.
The remaining 27 penetrate to the carriers, but accomplish nothing.
Anti-aircraft fire and swarming Hellcats eliminate them systematically. Barrett watches a Zero make a desperate attack run on Essex. The pilot is committed, boring straight in tracers from his 20mm cannons, walking toward the carrier's island. Anti-aircraft guns respond 5-inch guns and 40mm Bofors and 20mm Oerlikons, creating a curtain of steel. The Zero flies into the barrage and simply comes apart, shredded by explosive shells pieces spinning into the ocean. The pilot ejects at the last moment, parachute blossoming white against blue sky. He lands in the water 200 yards from Essex. Destroyers will pick him up, interrogate him, send him to a prisoner of war camp. Barrett wonders if the pilot knows his aircraft's secrets were sold by a dead boy named Takeshi Yamada. Raid 2, 107 Japanese aircraft. Result 97 destroyed, 10 survived to return to their carriers. Raid 347 aircraft. Result 40 destroyed, 7 return. Raid 482 aircraft. Result 61 destroyed, 21 return. By 1600 hours, the battle is over. Japanese carriers launched 370 aircraft. Approximately 130 returned. Loss rate 65%. American losses 29 aircraft. 16 to operational causes, mechanical failures and fuel exhaustion. 13 to enemy action. Hellcat kills estimated between 180 and 200 Japanese aircraft. Kill ratio approximately 15-1. Barrett descends to the ready room where returning Hellcat pilots are debriefing. He finds Merritt McRae, now 24 years old, veteran of 18 months of combat, credited with 25 confirmed kills. Today, McRae added 7 more. McRae sits in a chair, flight suit soaked with sweat, hands trembling as he tries to light a cigarette. Barrett offers him a light. 7, Barrett says. That's a hell of a day. McRae inhales deeply, exhales smoke. They kept coming. Wave after wave. We shot them down and they kept coming. Did the tactics work, the Barrett maneuver? McRae nods. Kill number 4. Zero got on my 6, closing fast. I pushed negative, my engine kept running his quit. 4.7 seconds, just like your report said. I rolled right at 300 knots, he couldn't follow. Got separation reversed, killed him on the next pass. And the others. High-speed slashing attacks. Dive, shoot, extend. They tried to turn with us at low speed a few times, but we just extended away. Used our speed and power. They couldn't catch us. McRae takes another drag. It was like shooting targets at a county fair. They didn't have a chance. Barrett feels something cold settle in his chest. How many total kills for the squadron today? VF 1547 confirmed. 47 Japanese pilots dead in one day. Young men trained at great expense flying aircraft that their nation could barely afford to build. All of them killed using tactics derived from 1 captured Zero, 1 test pilot's 24 flights, 1 intelligence report written 2 years ago. Barrett excuses himself and walks to the flight deck. The sun is setting, painting the Philippine Sea orange and red. The water is littered with debris, oil slicks, floating wreckage, bodies in life vests, some alive, some not. A destroyer passes close to Essex, pulling survivors from the water. Most are Japanese. Pilots who ejected from burning aircraft, bobbing in the waves, waiting to be rescued by their enemies. Barrett watches a young Japanese pilot being pulled aboard the destroyer. The pilot is maybe 19 years old, soaking wet, bleeding from a head wound. He looks up at Essex, towering above him, and his face shows not anger or defiance, but exhaustion. He is alive, but his war is over. How many more like him? How many more will die before Japan surrenders? Barrett returns to his cabin and writes in his journal. The entry is brief. June 19, 1944, Philippine Sea. Estimated 240 Japanese aircraft destroyed today. Kill ratio approximately 15-1. Hellcat performed exactly as designed. Barrett maneuver used successfully in multiple engagements. Tactics are validated. The weapon works. I should feel proud. I feel nothing. He closes the journal and lies in his bunk, listening to the carrier's ventilation system hum through the bulkheads. Sleep does not come easily. October 24th, 1944. Leyte Gulf, Philippines. The Hellcat has become the dominant fighter in the Pacific theater. Every American fleet carrier operates squadrons of F6Fs. Production at Grumman's Bethpage factory has reached its peak, 644 aircraft manufactured in the month of March 1944. 1 Hellcat per hour, 24 hours per day, 7 days per week. The Japanese know they are losing the air war. Intelligence intercepts reveal internal Japanese naval aviation reports acknowledging the Hellcat's superiority. Translated documents use phrases like catastrophic losses and untenable casualty rates and pilot exhaustion critical. A new phenomenon appears in Japanese pilot behavior, zero fatigue. Aviators who survive encounters with Hellcats report psychological trauma, reluctance to engage, fear that borders on paralysis. Some pilots refuse to take off when Hellcats are reported in the area. Others jettison their bombs early and flee rather than pressing attacks. The mystique of Japanese invincibility, so powerful in 1942, has completely reversed. Now it is American pilots who feel invincible, Japanese pilots who feel doomed. Barrett reads translated interrogation reports from captured Japanese aviators.
One pilot, a 20-year-old named Yoshiro Nakamura, survived when his Zero was shot down by a Hellcat near Saipan. The interrogation transcript is brief. Q. How many missions have you flown? A 14. Q. How many of your original squadron mates are still alive? A. I am the only one. Q. What did you think when you saw American Hellcats approaching? A. I thought I would die. Q. Did you attempt to engage them? A. We tried. They are too fast, too strong. Our Zeros cannot damage them.
Their guns destroy us immediately. Q. What do Japanese pilots call the Hellcat a Shinigami? Death god. Barrett closes the file, feeling sick. The weapon he helped create has become so effective that it crushes not just aircraft, but human will. The psychological dominance is as complete as the tactical dominance. Is this victory? Is this what success looks like? February 12th, 1945. Naval Air Station, North Island, San Diego. 14:37 hours. Barrett receives word that the Akutan Zero has been destroyed. Not in combat, not in testing, in a stupid, meaningless accident. An SB-2C Helldiver dive bomber lost control while taxiing, veered across the ramp, and crashed into the parked Zero. The Helldiver's propeller, still turning at high RPM, chewed through the Zero's fuselage like a saw through cardboard. By the time ground crew shut down the Helldiver's engine, the Zero was scrap metal. Barrett drives to the hangar. The wreckage is still there, covered with a tarp. He pulls back the canvas and looks at what remains. The cockpit is destroyed. The wings are severed. The engine is torn from its mounts. Nothing is salvageable. The most valuable intelligence asset of the Pacific War reduced to garbage. Barrett finds a piece of the instrument panel, Japanese characters still visible on the cracked gauge face. He pockets it. A souvenir. A reminder. Captain Hayes appears beside him. "Hell of a way to go," Hayes says. "Survived combat, survived the crash in Alaska, survived 24 test flights, only to get destroyed by friendly fire on the ground." Barrett nods. "How many kills do we estimate came from the intelligence this aircraft provided?" Hayes consults a folder. "Hard to quantify precisely, but if we attribute the F6F's design refinements partially to your report, and we count tactical victories enabled by the Barrett maneuver, conservative estimate is 2,800 Japanese aircraft destroyed as a direct or indirect result of the Akutan Zero intelligence. 2,800 aircraft. Multiply by one pilot per aircraft, 2,800 Japanese aviators dead, because one 19-year-old boy made a bad landing in an Alaskan bog." Barrett walks away from the wreckage without speaking. September 2nd, 1945. Tokyo Bay, aboard USS Missouri. Japan surrenders. General Douglas MacArthur accepts the surrender documents while representatives from Allied nations watch. The war is over. Final statistics for the F6F Hellcat. Total production, 12,275 aircraft in 37 months. Total enemy aircraft, destroyed 5,163 confirmed kills by US Navy and Marine Corps pilots. Total F6F losses in air-to-air combat, 270. Kill ratio 19.1 to 1. The Hellcat produced 306 fighter aces, more than any other Allied aircraft. Commander Merritt McRae finished the war with 34 confirmed kills, all in F6Fs, making him the Navy's highest-scoring ace. The Zero production totaled 10,425 aircraft over the entire war. Japan built fewer Zeros in 6 years than Grumman built Hellcats in 3. Barrett attends the surrender ceremony as part of the official observer delegation. He stands on Missouri's deck watching Japanese officials sign documents formally ending hostilities. He thinks about Takeshi Yamada, 19 years old, dead for 3 years and 3 months, buried somewhere in the Aleutian Islands before being repatriated to Japan. Yamada's mother received his remains in 1953, 8 years after the war ended. She was 68 years old, a widow. Her only son returned as ash in a ceramic urn. Barrett tried to write her a letter once. October 1942. The night after completing his final report. He wrote 7 drafts, trying to explain, trying to apologize, trying to make sense of what he had done with her son's airplane. He never sent the letter. What could he say? "Your son died and his death saved my country. Your son's sacrifice was unwilling but effective. I used his airplane to kill his countrymen. and I should be thanked for it. There are no words for that. The ceremony ends. Japan is defeated. America has won. Barrett returns to his cabin and writes the final entry in his war journal. September 2nd, 1945. Tokyo Bay. Japan surrenders. The war is over. We won. Final tally, 19.1 to 1. 19 Japanese aircraft destroyed for every Hellcat lost in air combat. The Akutan Zero's intelligence contribution is incalculable, but certainly in the thousands of enemy aircraft eliminated, thousands of American pilots saved. I should feel victorious. I feel empty. I killed 400 men by teaching others Yamada's weaknesses. He killed Zero, he just wanted to fly. War makes corpses of the innocent and heroes of the studious. I was studious. He was innocent. The scoreboard says I won. But scoreboards lie. I will carry Takeshi Yamada with me for the rest of my life. His face in my dreams. His blood on the seat I sat in for 29 hours. His ghost in every Hellcat that killed a Zero using my tactics. This is victory. This is what it costs. God help me, I would do it again. May 3rd, 1974. Bethesda, Maryland. Barrett family residence. Harlan. Barrett dies at age 64. Heart attack. Sudden and massive. He collapses at his desk while working on a model F6F Hellcat paintbrush in hand, navy blue paint on his fingers. His grandson Michael, age 16, finds him. The paramedics pronounce him dead at the scene. While sorting through Barrett's effects, Michael discovers a drawer in the desk. Inside, 24 flight logs from 1942 documenting every flight in the Akutan Zero. A piece of Japanese instrument panel cracked and faded. A folder containing copies of the 127-page report, and an unsealed envelope containing a letter addressed to Mrs. Yamada, Hokkaido, Japan. Michael reads the letter, then reads it again, then sits down crying for a grandfather he thought he understood but never really knew. The letter never gets sent. Michael keeps it. He will donate it to the National Naval Aviation Museum in 1998, where it will be displayed in a case alongside a piece of the Akutan Zero's wreckage. The display placard reads, Lieutenant Commander Harlan Barrett, test pilot. 24 flights in captured Zero. Report saved, estimated 11,500 American lives. Letter never sent. Visitors read the letter through glass, protected and preserved, a confession frozen in amber. November 12, 2008. Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, Washington, D.C. An elderly Japanese man stands in front of an F6F Hellcat displayed in the Pacific Aviation section. He is 84 years old, slightly stooped, wearing a dark suit. His name is Hiroshi Tanaka. He flew Zeros during the war. 63 combat missions, 11 confirmed kills, shot down twice, wounded 4 times, survived when 218 of his squadron mates died. He stares at the Hellcat for 20 minutes without moving. A museum docent approaches. Sir, are you all right? Tanaka nods slowly. I fought against these, 1943 to 1945. You're a Zero pilot? Was. Long time ago. Tanaka reaches out, touches the Hellcat's propeller blade. This aircraft killed my friends. Many friends. The docent does not know what to say. Tanaka continues. But the Americans were right to build it. We were killing their friends too. War is war. He pauses. I read about the captured Zero, the one in Alaska, the intelligence report. Very thorough, very professional. The Barrett report changed everything. Tanaka nods. Yes. We knew something changed in 1943. American pilots suddenly knew all our weaknesses. We didn't know why until after the war. He taps the Hellcat, scowling. This airplane, and that report. That is why we lost the air war. Do you resent it? The captured Zero? Tanaka considers the question for a long moment. The pilot who died Yamada, he was just a boy, 19 years old. He didn't choose to give the Americans his airplane. Fate chose for him. He looks at the docent. I am alive because I was lucky. He is dead because he was unlucky. The Americans were smart to learn from their luck. That is not shameful. That is survival. Did you know him, Yamada? No, but I knew boys like him. We all did. Tanaka's eyes are wet. The Zero was a beautiful aircraft, but it was built for a different kind of war. When the Americans learned our secrets, they built weapons to exploit them. That is what intelligent enemies do. He bows slightly to the Hellcat, a gesture of respect, then walks away. The docent watches him go, an old warrior paying tribute to the machine that killed his comrades. War creates these moments. Respect between enemies, acknowledgement of skill, recognition that both sides believed they were right, both sides fought bravely, Both sides bled. The scoreboard says America won 19-1, but the old man walking away knows that scoreboards lie.
Epilogue. The Akutan Zero's legacy lives in numbers: 12,275 Hellcats built, 5,163 enemy aircraft destroyed, 270 Hellcats lost in air combat, 19.1-1. The legacy lives in names: Takeshi Yamada, 19 years old, died June 4th, 1942. Never knew his airplane would doom his nation. Harlan Barrett, test pilot, 24 flights, 127-page report, carried guilt until death. Merritt McRae, 34 kills, survived the war, became an airline pilot, died 1998. Hiroshi Tanaka, survived 63 missions, watched 218 friends die, lived to age 91. The legacy lives in museum pieces. Fragments of the Akutan Zero scattered across 3 museums. An unsealed letter never sent confessing crimes that were not crimes. An F6F Hellcat restored and gleaming, representing victory that cost everything. The legacy lives in lessons. Intelligence wins wars. Understanding your enemy is more valuable than outproducing them. One captured aircraft can change history. Victory and guilt are not opposites.
They are companions. The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, Marcus Island, Later Gulf, battles where Hellcats destroyed Zeros with systematic efficiency, applying lessons learned from one dead pilot's airplane. 19-1.
The ratio haunts the sky over Akutan Island, where Takeshi Yamada crashed in a bog, where his airplane sat for 10 weeks before Americans pulled it from the mud, where his sacrifice, unwilling and unknowing, saved 11,000 American lives and killed thousands of Japanese pilots. The ratio haunts Harlan Barrett's grave in Arlington National Cemetery, where a headstone lists his rank and dates but says nothing about the 24 flights that changed the Pacific War. The ratio haunts the assembly line at Grumman long closed, where workers built 1 Hellcat per hour for 37 months, each aircraft carrying Barrett's knowledge in its design. 19-1. Not just a statistic, a story of chance and skill, luck and engineering, sacrifice and guilt. Yamada wanted to be a civilian pilot after the war. He wrapped broken ribs with medical tape because flying meant more to him than pain.
He wrote his mother a letter saying not to cry if he didn't return. He didn't return. His airplane returned him piece by piece, secret by secret, weakness by weakness. And 11,000 American pilots came home because one 19-year-old Japanese boy made a bad landing in Alaska. The scoreboard says America won. But Harlan Barrett knew the truth. Scoreboards lie. Victory is just survival with better public relations. And 19-1 is a number built on graves.
Some belong to the enemy. Some belong to the innocent. Some belong to boys who just wanted to fly. The Akutan Zero taught America how to win the Pacific, but it couldn't teach anyone how to live with winning. That lesson no one ever learns.